Owing to its immigration legacy, ethically and culturally, the United States of America is one of the world's most diverse and tolerant nations. The start of many trends and forward-thinking initiatives has also been attributed to the open-minded nation. In the last 100 years, U.S. society has also consciously and compassionately progressed in animal welfare and the preference for the healthier plant-based diet. Supreme Master Ching Hai has on many occasions spoken of the deep spiritual quality of this great nation.
I really respect the Americans, for their force, for their determination, and their hard work spirit. Within 200 years, they built a whole nation, and so big, so vast a nation. I was always touched when I arrived in America. And the Americans were also refugees. They wanted to protect their belief. That is very noble, really. And they came with nothing. Only the brain, only the spirit, only their faithful belief in God. And look at what they have made out of this nation, out of the wildness, of the big wasteland. And they have built from nothing to make it become the most powerful country on earth. And now, because their seed is spiritual, therefore they always return to spiritual. The first motive for them to settle in this land is spiritual reason. Therefore, that seed never died. Yes. And because they are spiritual, therefore they can build their land so strong. Because they have built everything that they need to have a comfortable earthly existence. Now they are very much for spiritual. That's why a lot of vegetarian houses in America now. Many people are vegetarian. Millions of people.
It is interesting to note that prior to the industrial era that escalated during the 20th century, meat eating in the United States was not at all common before the 1900s. Indeed, most people living in the U.S. before this age ate very little animal flesh and subsisted on a primarily plant-based diet. Today, we cordially invite you to join us on an inspiring and informative exploration into the lesser-known but venerable history of this great united nation.
The ways in which people ate says a lot about a society. Vegetarians throughout their history during this time period are involved in utilizing the diet as a way to advocate for greater change within society.
Mr. Adam Shprintzen, PhD candidate in the Department of History at Loyola University of Chicago, USA, will be our guide today in the conclusion of a three-part program on our noble lineage. A vegetarian himself, Mr. Shprintzen became interested in history of vegetarianism in America when he began his higher studies in university. He quickly realized it is an often neglected cornerstone of 19th century America.
So, what were the primary reasons that people actually started embracing a vegetarian diet in the early 19th century?
The first motivator, I would say, was health. So in 1831, there's a large-scale cholera epidemic that wipes out huge populations throughout northern cities, in particular in New York City, Philadelphia, and Boston. By embracing a vegetarian diet, a cleaner, more pure diet, individuals saw significant health benefits, that they weren't eating meat that was largely diseased at the time, that they did not know where it was coming from, how it was being handled, how it was being cared for. So in essence, these early vegetarians were living significantly more healthy lifestyles than the average American. One of the arguments that vegetarians make throughout the 19th century is that certainly at the end of the 19th century, is that a vegetarian diet is most beneficial because it's a primary diet, that you're getting nutrients directly from the plants, whereas those who are practicing a meat-based diet were actually getting those nutrients from sort of the second degree, that they've been digested and absorbed by the animals, and then individuals were eating animals and getting these nutrients, but they had been essentially watered down by that point.
With more knowledge into the implications of health from one's diet, vegetarianism also became an expression of fitness and peak physique.
By the end of the 19th century, vegetarianism actually becomes associated with athleticism. There's a growth of bodybuilders that embrace a vegetarian diet, and they flex their muscles as a way to literally show how individuals can succeed thanks to a vegetarian diet. So that even in 1905, the University of Chicago's football team trains on a vegetarian diet and has success. They win their conference. One of the most popular bodybuilders at the turn of the 20th century is an individual named Bernard McFadden, and he has a magazine called Physical Culture magazine, in which he advocates partially for vegetarianism as a way to gain greater strength, muscle development, and athleticism. In this magazine, he highlights the athletic accomplishments of vegetarians throughout boxing, running, boating, even baseball, and he goes through and talks about the athletic accomplishments of these vegetarians, and then of course notes how they were able to beat non-vegetarians as proof that this diet works.
From its first official introduction by the Bible Christian Church in 1817 to its political statements and health emphasis, vegetarianism evolved and expanded in the 19th century. As the mainstream public became more aware of the multitude of benefits that came with plant-based eating, meat alternatives were created that appealed to health and discerning palates.
I think that the change in vegetarian diet actually has a lot to do with the change in perception of vegetarians in the 19th century. So as vegetarians start to embrace these meat substitutes, protose, bromose was another well-known one, nuttose, which was a peanut-based dish. As vegetarians expanded their diet into more appealing offerings to society at large, not coincidentally, at the same time, society started to view vegetarians differently. By the 1880s, the notion of meat substitutes, vegetarian products that can taste possibly like meat, that maybe even have a similar texture, and have the qualities of protein become more popular. So J.H. Kellogg, who's a Seventh-day Adventist and involved in the Battle Creek Sanitarium in Michigan, begins building and creating these meat substitutes in his laboratory at the Battle Creek Sanitarium. The most popular amongst them was a dish known as protose, which was essentially a combination of any number of different legumes with nuts, and bound together in a tin can, sold at about 25 cents for a 10-ounce can. And people would use them as a meat substitute. They would perhaps throw breadcrumbs on it and fry it into a patty, use it maybe as a substitute for crumbled meat. These meat substitutes become very popular and help vegetarianism reach a sort of wider audience.
When our Noble Lineage returns after this brief message, we will find out how the city of Chicago became a hotspot for the vegetarian movement. You are watching Supreme Master Television.